Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Growth Path. Today I'm super excited to have somebody on that I've known for a number of years. Grant, I think we go back to maybe 2015-ish, if I'm not mistaken, 2016-ish maybe. Um, yeah, some time ago. Like if I look back through the years, so on Grant's, I have your CV printed out here, Grant, just so you know. So Grant started his career in cars actually with Mercedes. I didn't realize that. I was looking at your LinkedIn today, and I was like, oh, you worked for Mercedes as a service team manager there. Then went into the wonderful world of tech, into SaaS tech, working at a company called Faster, where he started as a seller, and then 7 years later ended up as a VP of sales. Following on a couple of years from that was moved on to Emarsis, which is now SAP. Emarsis is where we got to know each other. Grant was running the European, Middle East, and Africa operations there from the UK office out of London. And within 4 years, Grant found himself in a chief revenue officer position at Emarsis. Following that, then Emarsis was then acquired by SAP, as mentioned, where he then found himself as the general manager and senior vice president of customer experience for EMEA. And in the past years, he then moved on to MessageBird, where he was a CRO and helped them grow over a number of months. And then after that, then went on to Uberall. And he's been with Uberall now as the chief revenue officer for the past almost 2 years. So I think it's 1 year and 9 months. There you go. We stand by our values. So Grant as well, on top of that, as I mentioned, started in the MarTech SaaS space in April 2009. I know Grant personally, and I can only vouch to say that he's probably one of the best leaders that I've seen in a sales organization ever. That's also been recognized outside of me, right? Having been recognized in 2021 as the UK top sales leader by Sales Confidence. On top of that, I know Grant, and as I said, like the way that I see him lead is with a lot of passion, a lot of enthusiasm, and also has a good ear for people and is never throwing people under the bus is probably the best way to put Grant. So Grant, really happy to have you on, mate.
Thank you. If it wasn't for this tan from the good weather in the UK last couple of weeks, you'd see me blush. It's a very kind introduction. Great to be here.
Yeah, man. So tell me, how are things at Uberall?
They're really good. I mean, it's a lot of really hard work, but I think that's the story of everywhere MarTech SaaS. Not that it's ever been easy, but we face the same challenges as I think everybody else does. Things are certainly getting harder. There's a lot more opportunity, but there's a lot less space. So making sure that we get to the top as fast as possible, make sure that we understand our differentiation, our value proposition, and stand behind what we promise to deliver. It's never been so important. So exciting times, great company, and I really enjoy the space.
Who are you selling into?
So we will sell into the office of the CMO, albeit typically the buyer for where we're at is somebody involved in more of an SEO capacity, so an SEO manager or a location manager, or something to do with retail operations or some operation role. It's not all retail in this segment. We typically sell mostly to either retail, automotive, anything to do with automotive gas stations, EV charging, car dealerships, tire servicing, healthcare, insurance, service area businesses. Effectively, what the company does is it helps your physical location get found. So we're lucky enough to have the likes of Starbucks, Chick-fil-A, Marks and Spencer's, and the likes as customers of ours, where they want to manage all of their locations, which run into the thousands and tens of thousands in some cases, across all the different places where a consumer could search for that location, making sure that the information about their business, their address, the location, the pictures, the videos, the reputation, the reviews is consistent regardless of where they search from. Very hard to do per location if you're going to manage them all separately in each platform that you can search on separately. So that's what we do. And just think about our TAM and our ICP as anybody that's got a location they want to get found.
Great. I mean, so where are you at revenue-wise now, if you can share that, or give me a band at least?
We're above the 60, so we're in between the 60 and 80 million mark, and it's companies of our size, similar to the Emarsis story when I joined and we first met. That journey to 100 million is what we're aiming for over the next 3 years.
That's familiar territory to you, I guess.
Yes, very much so. Especially working for a German company or a very Germanic company. That same journey, trying to grow globally, with all the problems that come with European businesses trying to find its voice in an international stage, all feels very familiar, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Tell me about some of those problems. So what are some of the problems you're encountering, those scaling issues?
I mean, let's leave scale to one side. Let's talk about message first. I think, the typical problem of Germanic businesses, and you know this better than me, is what makes them grow and earns them the credibility in the markets they grew up in won't serve them as well for the markets they want to grow into. So that's typically kind of the recurring problem. A German buyer or anyone in the DACH region will host you for 2 days to do a full exploration meeting, look at every technical point, every user point. They'll have a very detailed idea about what they want, how they're going to get there, and they then test your credibility, and sometimes over many, many hours. They want those sessions. They want to make decisions with confidence. The further you go to the west, I can talk about that more than I can talk about going east, but the further that you go to the west, the more the value prop needs to stand out, the more the differentiation needs to stand out. They're more likely to, the buyers are more likely to presume that the guts of the system will work, the APIs will function, and they're much more interested in other value propositions. What's going to give me an edge against my competitor? How do you perform? Where's the referenceability? And they expect to see some sex and sizzle. Like, they really want your brand to stand out. They want to feel like they're making a choice which is going to push their business to the next level. So often what you find is a business that's really committed to we can prove that we work, versus you need to inspire this person to make that change. And the other thing I think that you'll find familiar is, how do you stand out as a new vendor in especially like a North America market, when there's already incumbents in North America that are well known, that have their 10 years of history of building a user base and an expert layer, and then you're a new vendor. Maybe you have credibility, but you certainly don't have brand and marketing in those regions. Is very expensive pound for pound. So you have to figure out how you grow in those markets. So those are the challenges. I don't think I'm telling you anything that's unfamiliar.
No, I think it's interesting just on the German brands thing. My experience with it is that they always want to focus on the reality. Like, the Germans is black and white. There's no gray. So like, as marketing, it's tough when you're going into new regions, because you want to share a vision. Like, you may not be there yet, but you can paint the vision towards getting there, and it's a big thing. In the States, they love that. The States is all, like bright lights and fancy stuff. Behind it all, complete chaos. But as long as you're sharing, as you said, the sex and sizzle, and people are like, wow, that's something that I can really be excited about. Whereas Germans, like, very matter of fact, very like, this is what we can offer. We can't offer that now, so why should we talk about it now? That type of mentality is like a push and pull type of thing, where you're trying to meet in the middle somehow. At the same time, I think it has its benefits in the States, knowing that, okay, the Germans still have that like efficiency, that they build things very well. You're in good hands with a German engineered product. I think that plays well. But at the same time, it's as you said, it's hard to bridge that gap between the vision and the reality, because the Germans want to keep on pulling it back, whereas the Americans want to have it out here, right?
You're absolutely right. But if I've had any success, and I've pretty much built my career on this by this point, there is an advantage which, if you can learn how to do both, if you can find sellers and you can get your marketing evolution to start painting that vision and really grab people in, and then you can make it to the point where you reach a shortlist based on the credibility of what you have. If you can then deliver referenceability of actual proof that it works, then you've got something which typically, again, pound for pound, not all competitors are the same, but other businesses will find it tougher. They will overpromise, and there is a kind of an acceptance of the chaos you'll go through in an implementation phase and a learning phase, which is unacceptable to any business that's grown up in Central Europe. Like, that can't happen. It's not allowed to happen. So when you can then connect at that late stage to a customer, I made it my first thing when I first joined Uberall was, we had promises, we had some people that were over promising, like the things that tend to happen when you get a bit more desperate to hit a number. People start to over promise, they tend to push a boundary. Whereas I'm much more, what are our strengths? Amplify our strengths, and then we better stand behind them. And ultimately, in a position like mine, you can, when you're responsible for sales, success, implementation, support, RevOps, you really do own the customer experience. So if you say you're going to do it, you can do it. But when you can actually connect a customer in that last stage of the journey to a brand new customer that's mid implementation with confidence, how many brands and customers would most software companies connect to during implementation?
Zero. Most is
So,
close to zero, apart from you guys, clearly.
well, no, I mean, and again, it's about building like the expectation. What's going to happen? How's it really going to work? And how do we stand behind this? Um, and it hasn't been that long. It's a little over 18 months that I've been with Uberall now. But again, within 6 months, we had those customers, and some of the customers that we've won inside the last year have been the customers that are most eager to get on stage and join us at an event, tell our story, support us with a reference call. And again, I'm not buying that. People aren't lying to get that. It's just delivery against the promise. So I think it's one of your biggest weaknesses from a how do you kind of shock a market into understanding that you're there, because it's tough. You have to sort of change the vision and the boldness of the vision and how much you're prepared to market slightly beyond your capacity and a little bit more into what's coming next. Very non-European way of marketing a business, but that you stand behind your commitment is the difference. And I'm not saying that American businesses are happy to let their customers fail. It's just slightly less important post sale that you actually reach the value promised. So I just think that there's a huge opportunity, and I think I've become very happy and confident selling behind something that I know I can deliver. And I think it's much easier to inspire a team around that vision than it is, look, we just need to reach for the stars. Just tell them yes, we'll figure it out later. Like I've never been able to back that type of approach in selling.
That brings it so how do you get the team into that mindset? So that's your mindset, right? How big is your team right now, Grant?
200 people in my team. Go to market part of that is, where are we at now? 18 sellers, the same BDRs, we're one for one, 20 CSMs, 10 account managers, 7 people in solutions, and then a RevOps team. But there's the size of the go-to-market team. It's 60, 70 people of the 200 in my org.
And how do you then breed that mentality, that culture into the team? Like, how do you set that mindset with them?
Well, you tell them you're going to do it, and then you make sure that each part of the customer journey understands the promises that are being made and that they can stand behind them. And then everybody has to be accountable. So I don't know if you remember, but in my office in Masters, I had it on the wall, famous saying about, if you see something below standard and you do nothing, you've just set the new standard. It's probably not exactly the quote, but words to that effect, right? So once you're making these promises, you have to let everybody know and the good news, and again, if you can own that team, it's why I've always sought revenue leadership rather than sales leadership, ultimately early in my career. If you really own that experience and you make those commitments, you can demand what the experience is going to be. And it's absolutely fine for those departments to say, okay, on that basis, we don't have enough headcount, or we can only manage this many implementations concurrently, or we cannot accept customers like that. That I need to know, because it helps me focus on where we can find customers that can breed success. But knowing what that success looks like and just repeating it, focusing on the customers that you can make most happy, knowing that their life after switching, because it's normally a switch market in our market, will be far better because, name your reasons, like actually will be better. It tends to build confidence. The first thing you get is resistance. We've tried that, or we don't think that's going to work, or you've come from a different industry, you don't know what you're doing. I don't need to know the industry to understand the dynamics of what makes customers happy and how that flywheel supports the next customers that you're going to grow with. Like, I understand how successful customers with advocacy builds confidence and referenceability that supports a new business motion. So that's what I'm looking for. So I stand behind those promises. I'm also very, very visible. So I'm not somebody that shuts the door to their office and says, speak to my assistant. I'm somebody that stands in front of it. I will speak to the customers, and I will personally, especially where there's important prospects or there's a doubt or a fear, I'm the first to reach out to a late stage prospect or an existing customer and say, I hear you're having this problem, or I hear you have these fears. I'm responsible for it. So your next state and your success through implementation is ultimately my responsibility. Here's how I mitigate. Here's your bridge if you ever need to tell me that something's fallen below the level. Once you start behaving in this way, you build the team belief. Some people will fall off, they just won't get it, or they won't like the way that the energy is changing in the organization, because I am also very demanding. But some people thrive, and that's what you want to find, the people that thrive. And what I typically find is once you've got 51% of your organization connected to the vision, it's self-sustaining. It's less about my ability to drive it every single day and week. And it becomes self-sustaining because you've got more people that are prepared to support that mission and kind of drown out negative voices than you do negative voices that can drown out positivity. So that's what I'm looking for. It takes a lot of effort in the first phases, and it's easier to sustain past a certain point. But you also need the experience to know when you've reached that point, like what is the mood. You can survey a couple of times a year to the happiness, but in the end, you'll know from your cadences, like forecast calls, pipeline rhythms, one-on-ones, leadership feedback, skip leveling. That's how you start to figure out whether your organization's got the right vibe to carry this forward. But that's typically what I'm looking for.
That's awesome, man. I mean, you mentioned something very apt there as well. In the beginning, there will be pushback. And you also mentioned there, you've got the experience to know when to check in with the team to figure out, okay, is this going the right direction or not? And I think a lot of leaders or people that are earlier on in their careers than you would be, you see them shit the bed too early, and they don't take a step back and go, actually, no pain, no gain here. I need to keep pushing down this path. So let's say you take on a new go-to-market org and there's lacking pipeline or pipeline depth, and the pipeline that you do have is questionable. The only way to really get on top of that is to just be regimented in terms of pipeline updates, looking at what's entering in the top of the pipeline. Is it ICP? Is it not ICP? If we have a problem with stuff coming in at the top and it's not ICP, then we're doing something wrong on the marketing side, but we need to scratch away at that, pour some vinegar into the wound a little bit. And you need to get the team on board with that. And the team are going to push back at you and say, oh no, I don't want to jump on another call. We already had a call the other day about this. Doesn't matter. We're going again. And we're going to check what the next steps is on our ICP accounts. And we're going to check that again and again and again and again. And you'll get pushback from the team, massive pushback. But what the difference between somebody like yourself and a less experienced leader is that you're just going to see the course, regardless if the team are going to be pushing back at you. And those will start that once you start to see the results from that, the people that have been pushing back at you, they'll either drop away or they'll come on team Grant. So that's it.
And here, I mean, it's like the same old things that have always worked still work. Like, it is the fundamentals. And the good news is the technology helps you find the green shoots faster. You can point to them much more quickly. But you are correct. It is just the fundamentals. I mean, the first thing I did when I got into Uberall was establish a forecast rhythm. They didn't really have one. It's very informal, once a month. I mean, in a mid-market business, the motion is too fast to rely on a once-a-month forecast. You're not going to have the quality inspection on the deals that you need to have. But rather than just forecasting as a function of reporting to the business what the number's going to be, what I made sure everybody understood the forecast to be was the chance in a remote-first environment, we are fully remote as an organization, to cross-pollinate, to learn, to generate knowledge transfer for osmosis, to see what's working, to see which opportunities are progressing fastest and why people in other countries might target the same business, if it's a regionalized sale, or businesses like it with the same pitch, what messages are working, how is each region dealing with competitive threats, what are the objections. Like when I got here, it was the market's very competitive, there's nothing to differentiate us other than price. And as coming from marketing automation, everybody's got a solution. So you're always dealing with a competitor. And it was the typical thing, right? Yeah, it's just price. And it never is. It's
No.
not, people are very, very looking for change in order just to save money. I'm not saying there haven't been periods where it became a must. I think we've recently seen one, but they are still looking for net new value in that transfer. If they're going to go through a migration, they want value. So listening to the objections they were dealing with and then helping them pre-beat the competition. Before, like, what did the competition say? Oh, they say X, Y, Z. Okay, well, then you need to say 4 weeks earlier in sales cycle, this is what you're going to hear from my competitor. And of course, the competitors then fall straight into the trap. It looks like a game. We've headed it off. So when the customer hear it for the first time, rather than fear and, oh, really? I didn't know that. It's, tactic. I was told that was going to happen. So these things really have sort of transformed the confidence in the business. And our win rate it was 9% when I joined. So the idea that you're going to create 10, 11x pipeline coverage in this market,
Wild.
it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And we ended last year with a 34% win rate and the highest pipeline that we've ever had as a business. So, statistically, it's very relevant when you know that you've also got, it's not just lower pipeline, more focused, and we get a higher win rate. No, we got more of everything. And it really was not much other than the fundamentals, understanding what works and repeat, what messages, what objections we're hearing, how do we deal with it? And we deal with it as a team. So the hours spent on these calls, which were first like, I don't want to be on a forecast call. Why am I on a pipeline call every Friday afternoon? I don't want to be on a pipeline call. I don't want to be inspected this way. It flipped, and some people left. Some people were like, this is a joke. I don't like it. And that's absolutely fine. It's deliberate. I'm looking to weed out those people that don't commit the time needed or don't commit to that shared learning experience. If they just want to be a lone wolf, sit in their office and get the job done, they better be 200% of their number. They don't get to fail and be that person. Right? So once they realize that it's also your job to bring new talent through, to share the examples, to help them understand why you win, how we differentiate. And that means you join these calls, you share your experiences. That's why we're here. That it was those fundamentals that have changed the momentum and the dynamics of the business. And it's not just about sales. It's exactly the same process for partnerships, exactly the same process for CS, exactly the same for account management. It's hard. It's a big investment, especially RevOps. To administer all this cadence across a business of our size is a very heavy burden. And for my own calendar, it means that often I start weeks with 20 to 25 hours of pre-planned meetings between the one-on-ones, the cadences and everything else. But over time, once you've set the rhythm of the business, these things will only breed confidence. They'll become easier to run. Your meeting length will get shorter, but you cannot expect to transform a business unless you're willing to put the work into that transformation. It takes time.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge undertaking, Grant, but for what you're seeing is success. As you said, you've had a 36% close rate last year in comparison to a 9% close rate and the highest pipeline you've ever had. So clearly it's working, So that they're amazing results, by the way. Congratulations.
Yep. Those results are definitely the function of everything working, but you can't even get, if you bear in mind that you've got the same product, especially in the early days. By the end of from where I started and where I finished the end of last year, the product's also getting better, the innovation's getting better, our marketing's getting better. So it's really the expression of everything. But that first change, same product, same marketing, that first 6 months, and we doubled the win rate in that period, it's rigor. It's repeating behaviors, it's commitment. It's also showing up and being honest and vulnerable. I'm not here to beat you up for what you don't know. I'm here to help you figure out what to do next. You tell me where, I don't want you to tick the med-pick boxes for the sake of ticking the boxes. I don't want to see your band qualification for the sake of seeing it. I want to know if you know, and you need to hold yourself to that same standard, because all this are indicators, they're road signs about the quality of your opportunity and how you're doing. The gong insights, the who's talking the most, what questions, are we single threaded? This is not to inspect your work. This is to help you figure out, I'm still missing this. And week over week, I can achieve that. Or if I don't know how to achieve that, the question is, what do you recommend? Who's had success doing the same thing in one of their recent opportunities? That's what you want the call to become, a safe place. But then at the same time, what I can't tolerate is people that show up and lie and fudge. And to be honest, now once we get a sense of it, there are so many tools that show either way whether that is likely to be the case. So you can't really hide. You can't really hide for that long anymore. Put it that way.
No, but your approach is amazing, and it's not always a given, right? I think there are a lot of organizations out there that do like want to beat people up almost, or are very stringent. Hey, you're doing something wrong. It's your fault. Point blame, basically, right? Whereas your approach is like, okay, like let's get to the crux of the issue early. Let's figure it out. Let's figure out what next steps are. You're not going to know everything. That's okay, right? You can't know everything. But you've been around the block a couple of times yourself, so you will see things that others won't see, right? So then that's where you're able to come in and hold their hand a little bit, right? And it's an amazing way of doing things, and that's definitely. It sounds as though that's a culture at Uberall, right? It sounds like that's the way that you guys see things and do things, right?
I think it's also it's a reality of where I think my strength has shown itself. You know, I know where I live. I know better where I live. When we transferred from SAP Emarsys into SAP, and then I took a role within SAP. It was exploratory. I didn't know. First time I worked for a big company, it didn't suit me because effectively, what that very senior, very well paid, at a brilliant and excellent company, like one of the best companies in the world, what that role meant was mostly forecasting, mostly telling other people what's happening, but very little in the way of transformation. I mean, what can you change in your cog? Really, it's much more about standard holding. Whereas in the roles like this, at this size and this revenue band, you're looking for those 1% a week gains. And you're willing to show up every week doing the same things, hosting the same meetings, knowing that you're going to get there. At the same time, I wouldn't want to work for a hyper small company at this point in my career and then do all these things. The way I see my value is I grease the wheels of everybody's operation. My success is the sum of everybody in my team's success and the contributing success from the other organizations within the business, how the products, whether I can influence them to build the right things, whether they make the right decisions, the ones that I don't have any control over, I don't have marketing in my organization, do they pick the right things, how aligned are we? But in my team directly, the ones that I can really kind of control and set the stage for and set the quality for, all my numbers point to is whether their work is as good as it can be. So if there is something hindering the best possible performance, it's my job to find out and fix it, and then allow those more greased wheels, that flywheel to turn faster, because I can't cover every opportunity. I can't be on every call. I don't even want to be. I never try to be. I'm not micro. I'm very macro in that sense. So yeah, once you kind of get that through your head and you realize, okay. I mean, I remember the first time I stepped up from a individual contributor into a leadership role. I had a team of 5. My instinct was to super rep. It was to do each one of my reps' job for them. To an extent that was unsustainable. But that didn't help. That didn't help anything. That didn't help me find any scale. That just meant that their success and the overall result was limited by how many opportunities I could cover. And eventually, once you cover too many, the quality actually drops because you can't sustain it, and no one's actually getting any better. If you do it for somebody, do they learn? Maybe sometimes. But are you teaching? Are you coaching? Probably not. So realizing that, looking for the problems, and then being seen to fix them so that there's something tangible that your teams can say, okay, you've taken action. It's not always, I don't care about popular. I'm not trying to win a popularity contest, but have I listened to the feedback and done something about the persistent issues across the business? And has that then resulted in an outcome? That's I think where I really try to think about everything that I'm doing. Is it going to make us move faster? And when you're picking between the priority list, it's the same thing. Which thing that I could do affects the most people, the most revenue, the most customers? Because you also can't take on every project.
That's amazing. You found your lane, man. So congratulations on that. Like like as you said, you when you were at Emarsys and went into SAP, you went into the CX role with sort of an exploratory mission, and now you know your lane. You know what's to be expected. You know what's to be expected of you, right? That's really good, man, and it's coming a great time in your career to do so. And also from everything that I hear from Uberall, it's an astounding success. I know there's obviously challenges and stuff is there's always scaling issues, there's team issues, there's always stuff that's going to be in your way, right? The bigger you get, the harder it gets, and the bigger the problems become, and it is what it is. But you're doing a fantastic job, man. So I'll keep on cheering from the sidelines, mate. Well done.
I appreciate it. Yeah, look, I don't know if I've found what I've found is the thing that gets the fire in my belly, and at this stage in my career, that is really important because we all work really hard, and it doesn't matter the size of the organization we work for. I can guarantee the same amount of hours will be expended. But this is where my contribution seems to get the best response. And, then the give get, the what you give and the clear demonstration of impact, which is then feels, I think it becomes fulfilling. The sacrifice and time sacrifice you make, the stress that you're under, it's all a lot easier to cope with if you can really see an impact. And at least this stage of my career, that's really important. So I'm very, very lucky to have found the business. And one of the reasons I picked it is because its problems felt like I felt like I was really well suited to its problems. Like that's one of the reasons why I'm here in the first place.
Oh, that's amazing, man. And the fire in the belly is the most important thing. If you're getting up doing something that isn't satisfying every day and you're not seeing results with it, even if you're well paid, that's for me at least, I think you're the same. That's got a very short shelf life for me, to be honest with you. So, but hey, look, we've just come up on time, mate. Where can people find you? Where's the best place to get you?
LinkedIn. I'm very, very active. It kind of started when right at the beginning of my career when I was one of the first to really adopt social selling, and my network has got pretty big and I'm very active. It's a tab always open. I'm very quick to respond. So I would say by and large, if you want me, get in touch on LinkedIn. Feel free to connect without me knowing you. I'm a furious networker, no problem. So that's the best place to connect with me, LinkedIn.
Great. We'll get that shared in the description of this episode as well, Grant. Right, mate. Cheers. That was it, guys. This has been another episode of Growth Path. Tune in again next week for more great content. Grant, that was great, mate. Thanks a million.
Thank you very much, Andy. Pleasure.
Cheers, buddy.